Good morning, class. My name is Mr. Williams, and today we're going to read The Moon by Night, which is going to help us use, at the end of this, some critical thinking. So today's the goal is to encourage you to use critical thinking when you make decisions that will influence what happens in your life. Our first activity is going to be the reading of The Moon by Night by Madeleine L. Engel, and then some answers at the end of the reading. Our second activity we'll use the story to see how it applies to our own lives and how we might handle future situations using critical thinking. And at the end, we will then discuss how it felt to participate in this activity and what you learned from it. So we're going to go to our reading. Okay. So that way we can get started. Again, this is The Moon by Night by Madeleine L. Engel. It was a most peculiar feeling. The solid ground under my feet gave a shudder. I stood still. It kept on feeling as though the ground was shivering. Then suddenly there was a jerk under me. It was something like when you go water skiing and someone cuts the motor and then suddenly speeds up again, trying to throw you. The next jerk did throw me. It was a much bigger jerk, and I fell flat on my face in the soft grass of the field. Underneath me, the ground seemed to heave the way your stomach does when you're terribly, terribly sick. I clung to the grass because there wasn't anything else to cling to. It was as though the whole earth, the whole planet, were jerking out in space, veering widely out of course, and I was on its back, clinging to its mane. Beneath me there was a terrible noise. It was louder than thunder, and it seemed to keep on and on until I thought my head would burst. Then the noise began to break into separate parts. A sound like thunder, a roar like the ocean in a storm, great crackings, crunchings, and finally all the noise got smaller and with spaces of quiet in between, and then they stopped. The silence was so complete that it was as frightening as the noise had been. I managed to turn my head, and at the top of the mountain wasn't there anymore. It didn't seem to be anywhere. Then I remembered the town of Frank in Alberta, the mountain that had fallen on the town. I pressed my face into the grass on the field as the earth heaved beneath me. I thought I was going to throw up, too, from terror, but I didn't. I looked around again. The top of the mountain was still gone. Everything looked different. I realized that most of the mountain had fallen into the field because the mountain was much closer to me and the field was much narrower than it had been before. I lay there, clutching the grass, not daring or even able to move, even if the rest of the mountain should fall on me. But after a while, I realized the tremors were less violent, that the earth was becoming quiet again. I staggered to my feet. The ground seemed quite solid beneath them. I looked for Zachariah. The pile of rocks was still there, but it was a different shaped pile. I didn't see Zachary. So, with the papers in front of you, the directions are you're going to choose or write the best answer to each of the following questions using the evidence provided in the passage, in what we just read. When required, list specific sentence numbers or paragraph letters from the story to support your answers. So question 1. What probably caused the shivering mentioned in paragraph A? Again, what probably caused the shivering mentioned in paragraph A? Okay. Now, if you wrote an earthquake probably caused the shivering, then you would be correct. And that's supported in sentence 4, which mentions the ground shivering. 9 says the ground heaves, and 26 mentions tremors, which are associated with earthquakes. Question number 2. Fill in the following blanks to describe the metaphor used in sentence 11. So as we see here, there's a blank metaphor, and it represents the planet. And then there's a metaphor, the main, which represents a blank. Let's go ahead and fill that in. So our metaphor is blank, but it represents the planet. What was it? It was a horse. And then you have the main, which is the metaphor representing a blank, the grass. So go ahead and fill those in. Question 3. Explain what two things are being compared in the analogy given in sentence 6. Explain what two things are being compared in the analogy given in sentence 6. The jerk the narrator felt is compared to the feeling that you get when you are water skiing and the boat slows or stops, then speeds up again. If you put that, then you are correct. All right, question 4. The narrative from the passage could best be classified as A, humorous, B, tragic, C, suspenseful, or D, fantastic. What do you feel that the best answer is? If you chose C, suspenseful, that would be correct. The events described create tension and make us wonder if things will come out all right. So choice C is appropriate. We don't know that anything tragic has happened, so B is incorrect. Nothing is humorous, so A is incorrect. Though the events described are not typical, they could really occur and are therefore not considered fantasy. All right. Question 5. In paragraph E, the words, "the mountain was much closer to me," meant what? A, she had moved towards the mountain. B, the mountain had literally moved towards her. C, she was speaking figuratively. Or D, the field had risen into the mountain. If you chose B, the mountain had literally moved towards her, you are correct. The mountains being much closer made her realize that most of the mountain had fallen into the field. All right, let's go to question 6. Based on paragraph F, where is Zachary most likely to be found? Where is Zachary most likely to be found? If you put under the rock pile, then you are correct. 2, the best evidence sentences are 30 and 31. The pile of rock was still there, but it was a different shaped pile. I didn't see Zachary, which leads you to believe she lost a friend. 7, which of the following most likely describes the narrator's point of view? A, the earth is a monster she must tame. B, the earth is a partner, she is at ease with it. C, she is vulnerable to the earth's terrifying forces. Or D, she is not affected by the natural forces of the earth. If you put C, she is vulnerable to the earth's terrifying forces, you would be correct. The description of the ground moving under her and her feelings of sickness, her feeling like she was riding something veering out of course, and the fact that she felt terror support choices C and contradict choice B and D. There is no evidence that she feels that she could tame the earth, so A is incorrect. All right, so we go to B. Number the following events in the order of the narrator's experience. We have looked for Zachary, heard loud noises, felt like vomiting, clung to the grass, and saw the mountain was closer. Okay, so first would be clung to the grass. 2, heard loud noises. 3, felt like vomiting. 4, saw the mountain was closer. And 5, looked for Zachary. All right, last question. How does the narrator compare herself to the earth in paragraph D? How does the narrator compare herself to the earth in paragraph D? So compare and contrast. The earth heaves, and she also feels like heaving, or you call it throwing up. That is how the narrator compares herself to the earth. Okay. Now, how could you take this story of what the narrator had described the earth to be and apply it to your own lives, a situation that is going on in your own life, and how you might handle in future situations. You know, you could say that, your life feels like a storm at times, and then when you finally recover from it, everything is different, and those feelings that you are feeling are natural, but it's how you deal with those feelings, how you critically think about those feelings, that's going to determine the outcome of how you handle life situations. There's going to be times where you feel vulnerable. There's going to be times when you feel excited. There's going to be times where you feel happy. There's going to be tragedy in your life. There's going to be suspense in your life. But how you critically handle these situations using decision making is going to determine the outcome of how everything turns out. So while this narrator felt scared and vulnerable and out of control or did not have control, she can use this past experience to help her with future experiences, future situations. She can handle it more appropriately. So I'd like to hear back from you guys, and how did you feel? How did you feel about participating in this activity, and what did you learn from it? How did you feel about participating in this activity, and what did you learn from it? So as we get ready to close out this, let's go to reflection. And some of the things I want you to think about, I know we had talked about critical thinking leading up to reading this. And now I want to hear, now that we've gone through this story, I want to hear from you on how you define critical thinking now. Now that we've gone through the moon by night, how would you define critical thinking now? What stood out to you the most in the story? What is one part of the story that you feel you would be able to apply to your future decision making? How would you use critical thinking now? Now that you have a better idea of critical thinking, how would you use critical thinking now? Well, I thank you for your time and look forward to all your feedback.